Hi, everybody. Welcome to the newest Anecdotes live session. And it's definitely my pleasure to have my friend Michelle Tolentino from the Philippines join me. I think it's so important to learn from each other from around the world because, and really, my hope is to highlight what people are doing around the world because it gives me hope to know that there's people like Michelle and others just around the world who are, using all of their gifts and talents to provide so much good to people who need it and who need for us to understand here, definitely in the West, in North America, in Canada, and the US, to understand so that when we read the news, we actually have a more well-informed understanding of the world. And no better way than to get it from a trusted source, meaning a very good friend. So I'm just so happy.
Hi, Anne. Good morning from Manila, Philippines. And thank you so much for having me in your anecdotes. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's always good to catch up with a friend, but at the same time, talk about something that's close to our hearts and, of course, close to the heart of the Lord.
Yeah,
Children, especially vulnerable children.
I think that's what we're supposed to do is protect the
Mhm.
vulnerable. It's so
Mhm.
important and biblical as well. So
Yes. So
hi.
thank you for having me here. It's good to be here. I'm glad that we're able to pull it through.
Yes, technology.
Oh my God. Yeah, technology. Yes.
So yeah, please, if you could introduce yourself to everybody.
Yes, my name is Michelle. I'm from Manila, Philippines, born and raised here in Manila, Philippines. And my background actually is in communication arts. I graduated with a degree in communication arts and then started working as a marketing director for a Christian theater company. That's my background.
Ah,
But then I felt, a pull. I think it's from the Lord, and called me to do my spiritual formation MA in Moody Bible Institute. So I came to the United States and then lived in Chicago for about 3 years and
wow.
did my MA there in spiritual formation and discipleship. And after that, I came back here in the Philippines and then we started this ministry called Made in Hope,
Mhm.
and it's a ministry that hopes to give hope, craft a future for exploited women and children, especially those who are trapped in, the cycle of violence,
Mhm.
those who are coming out of trafficking and prostitution here in the Philippines, and also come alongside their children. So this is our 10th year in doing that, a decade now. So we're
Congratulations.
grateful to the Lord for sustaining us. Yes.
That's
And
incredible.
here in the Philippines, we have a program called She Works, and it stands for work stands for Women of Reliability, Knowledge, and Skills. It's a non-formal training program for women survivors of trafficking and has a leadership potential because we envision this ministry to be led by them. So we envision this to be survivor led. Actually, now we're starting with that. And so we're excited that there are now 5 women survivor leaders who's leading the ministry with us. But I can tell more about that. And, as we talk about the issue of online sexual exploitation of children and how our organization or our ministry do something about that.
Mhm. Thank you so much for introducing yourself, but also giving us hope
Yes.
that this actually is possible. That is
It
actually
is,
possible.
yes, it is possible. I think because sometimes we just look at this from a global perspective, and sometimes the global perspective is more statistics, right? It's called statistics. But if we look behind the statistics, there are real people with real stories, and they are not just survivors. We call them survivors, but I know that there's so much more to them.
I'm so glad you are, well, okay. You're one of the people who has the courage to actually get into that entire ministry and to rescue people, or I don't know if the word rescue is appropriate, but help them out of that exploitation and victimization. So,
Mhm.
can you tell me what it was about this whole entire system that attracted you that you
Mhm.
said, I want to work in this area?
Well, I was born and raised here in the Philippines, and I grew up in one of the urban poor communities here
Hmm.
in Manila, Philippines. And so I've seen this firsthand. I lived in poverty as a child. I was a sponsored child by Compassion International. So that's part of my story. And I've seen this, and I feel that maybe that's a part of my story. And if God wants to redeem that part so that I can also share this kind of hope for others.
Wow.
I may not have been exploited, or I didn't go through all of the exploitation that the women and the children that we are journeying with now have have gone through. But somehow I know what it means to be poor, and I know what it means not to have a voice in this society. And
Mm.
so now I'm thankful that the Lord is using my voice. I have a radio show reaching out to so many people here in the Philippines and also all over the world, because we are doing that live stream
Yes.
as well. That's the name of the show, is Okido, the 414 Kids Show, and it gives voice to children.
Mm.
The voices of children are heard there, but at the same time we talk about the important issues that children needs to talk about. And
Oh,
because I'm hosting this with kids, so it's a radio show for kids but also by kids,
no way.
right? Yeah, so
So
it's
fun.
and you know what's amazing about this? We are amazed that it has already won three Golden Dove Awards by the Broadcasters Association of the Philippines. So we were
Yay.
given three
Congratulations.
Golden Dove Awards for that. So that's like a little diversion.
That's amazing. Well,
But that's the reason why I'm here. The reason why I'm here is because I've seen that, and I know that there is hope
mm,
for women, for children who are exploited and who
mhm.
are abused.
Man, I'm so glad that you're so multi-talented, but like to have it your own radio program to for kids and by kids means that it's not just one direction. You know, you're not just ministering to these children, you're actually including them and
Yeah.
empowering them to speak up and have a
Yeah,
voice.
and looking at them as co-laborers in the
Yeah.
kingdom. And at
Wow.
the same time, that's what we want to do with the ministry that we are doing in Maiden Hope, to look at the women, the children, whatever their backgrounds are, but they are also co-laborer,
Right.
in the kingdom, in the ministry.
Wow.
Mm.
So they're not just victims. They actually have
Yes.
the ability and the
Mm.
desire and the will to also do good and
Yes, and you do not just do mission to and for them, but you do mission with them.
with them.
And I think that's the most important thing in
Yeah.
in doing what God is asking us to do, is to to be inviting everybody to be part of what He's doing in the world.
Hmm. Well, if we learn nothing else from this hour together, that's huge. Wow. So, yeah, I wanted to know, like, if we could go back to, you said you also grew up in like an urban poor area in Manila. Um, what was the difference for you? Like, I think, you have choices and people
Mhm.
have choices, like, or is it a choice, or maybe there's no choice?
Mhm.
What was the difference with you?
Yeah, I think that's what I've realized too, that that what's important for us is to have a dignity of choice.
Hmm.
That our God-given dignity will be restored to us. And so for me, I think the reason why I'm here now is because there are people who have seen the potential in me and helped me, invested in me. And so at the beginning, that's, Compassion International, where I became a sponsored child. So I was sponsored by a family from Connecticut, from the United States, for many years. And then I was given an opportunity to study. I was able to finish the degree in communication arts,
Mm,
and with that, that's already something,
totally.
for me, because when I was a child, I cannot even envision myself, being able to do that, because we're not sure if we can do that because we don't have money. Both
Right.
of my parents doesn't have a job, when I was growing up. So it was a difficult childhood, but I am sure that that was part of my story, and
Mm,
it's just about us knowing what our story is, and what's God's purpose in that. The meaning of our lives, so that we can also make an impact, in other people's life. And
mm,
most of the time, I don't want to use the word impact, but it's mostly like what we can offer, or
yeah,
what we can do, because all of us, has an impact. It can be positive or negative.
that's right.
Mhm.
Yes. And honestly, it's not for your own self. Like it's not for your
Yes.
own gain. Like I don't get an education for me.
Yes.
We should be getting education for others so that we can
Mhm.
contribute to others as well
Yeah,
who
and
need it.
to live for something greater than ourselves. I think
Hmm.
that's we are called for. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we are blessed with even just an education, that's huge.
Mhm.
And a lot of people don't have that education. A lot of people, um, I think it's incredible what people can accomplish without an education. There's so
Yes.
many people who are illiterate but just works
Mhm.
so hard.
Mhm.
So it's not about the lack of desire. I think it's
Mhm.
about like setting people up to succeed and thrive.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Anne.
Yeah. Wow, you're such a role model.
Only by God's grace and His redeeming power in people's lives.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's so great. Okay, so yeah, if we could talk about honestly, like what what is online exploitation? Can you
Yes.
explain that to me?
Hmm. So, online sexual exploitation of children, or we also call it OSEC.
Mhm.
Particularly, this is the use of a child to make sexually explicit photos, videos, or live shows in the internet. And this is a serious threat and the most disturbing form of exploitation of children in the Philippines today.
Wow.
So, unlike many street or bar-based sex trafficking case where criminals, typically local men or foreigners living in the Philippines or sex tourists, will be seeking women, they go to those places. OSEC criminals directs the live abuse of a
Oh,
child via the internet. So there is a facilitator, mostly in the cases here in the Philippines, these are parents and relatives. So that's the heartbreaking thing about OSEC.
mhm,
The criminals or the perpetrators are their very own parents,
right.
and there is a customer, from another side of the world, who are directing,
Mm,
these live shows, and these are pedophiles specifically looking for young children.
mhm,
So these customers will use chat rooms, messaging services to purchase or trade child pornography or the videos, of this child. And what's disturbing about this is live stream. So mostly this is live, and then the customer will wire the payment, through a money transfer here in the Philippines. So that's how it happens.
well,
Mhm.
so I hear there's like systematic. It is systematic.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you have wire transferring of money, so international
Mhm.
money moving
Mhm.
around. You have the understanding that it is available, and
Mhm.
also that, I mean, if I was a parent doing this, my guess is that they have very few options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's because of poverty. And I think the reason why the Philippines is the global epicenter of this is one, English is widely spoken here. You know, it's easier for Filipinos to communicate to foreigners, whatever they want to talk about, and then they can understand, and then they can speak in English. And then second, we have a lot of internet connection, like data is so cheap. You know, for about 25 pesos, that's like a quarter or 50 50 cents, or like a dollar. You can already purchase data, and
Wow.
you can use those data to connect to the internet. And then of course the poverty
Mhm.
that a lot of Filipinos are experiencing. That's why sometimes this is the last resort
Mhm.
that they have, and then they fall into this trap.
Wow.
Mhm.
Who knew, honestly, the US
Mhm.
American influence on your country so many years later would just create this perfect storm
Mm.
for this industry to thrive, I guess. And
Yeah, and especially this pandemic, there was a report from the Department of Justice. I think this is just from March 1 to March 24. The Department of Justice reported that the OSEC cases surged by 264%
oh no.
during the pandemic. And so they said that it's a total of 279,166 cases from the Cyberline uh, Trip Report Hotline. So that's only from March 1 to May 24.
Oh, okay.
So that's a lot of
That's a lot.
cyber tip. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a big problem that we are facing here in the Philippines, especially for the safety of Filipino children.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow, you have a whole
Hmm.
generation or more of
Yes.
like children,
Mhm.
but also you
Mhm.
have like this incredible like appetite, I think, on the consumer end of people
Mhm.
who are just isolated during COVID.
Yes, we are, I think, in the history of all the lockdowns in the world, we have the longest lockdown in the world, the Philippines. So I'm not sure if I will be proud about that.
Yeah. Well, Toronto is pretty not as bad, but certainly locked down as well.
Yeah.
Whoa, but then you have these people who have really nothing else to do except to, I guess, have like access to porn, I guess.
Yes, yes. And it's not just a problem here in the Philippines. Obviously, it is an international crime.
Mhm.
There are, people from North America, from Australia,
Mhm.
Europe, different parts of the world who are buying, children online, yeah, and abusing children online. Yeah, there's
Mhm.
so many cases that we know of, that different nationalities, from the U.S., from
Mhm.
Canada,
Mhm. Yes.
from Australia, who are involved in this in this crime.
So not only is it a local issue, obviously, but it's a global issue.
Yeah, it
And
is a
so,
global issue.
and I,
So there needs to be a global solution.
yes, which is why
Yeah.
I think this topic is so important so that we actually understand and then
Mm-hmm.
can start to like
Mm-hmm.
join that fight
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
different ways. So, can you give us advice on like how we can get
Mm-hmm.
involved?
So there are five ways that governments, NGOs, non-government organization, faith-based organization, and different ministries or different uh, groups are doing so that we can tackle this issue. One is prevention. So we call this the five P's. So one is prevention. Our ministry is also doing preventive work among the grassroots, urban poor communities, educating children on what OSEC is, and that how traffickers will lure them to do this. And so that's one of the ways prevention. You can do it online. You can, by just sharing about this issue, by being aware. There's a lot of videos, with IJM, International Justice Mission. They have videos talking about OSEC. UNICEF as well has a video about, talking about this. Department of Justice here in the Philippines, and the US as well,
Mhm.
they have different videos that can be used so that we can prevent this. But yes, prevention is one of the ways that we can do it. So it's either through the advocacy work that we are doing. This is part of this one of the preventive work that we can do, is to talk about this. The second one is prosecution. So that's the work of the International Justice Mission.
Mhm.
They are prosecuting the perpetrators,
Mhm.
and also the facilitators here in the Philippines, who's facilitating that. And the sad thing about this, parents are involved in this. There's a lot of cases wherein the parents themselves are the one who are selling their children online. And
Mhm.
so the prosecution is done by, of course, government, local government unit, and then also our friends at IJM, the International Justice Mission. They do a lot of that work. And then protection. So
Can I
we
ask
have a lot
a
of
question?
partner shelters. Sorry.
Oh, can I ask a question then? What happens if it's the parents? Like, so then these parents go to jail?
Yes. And so that's more traumatic actually for the kids. There was a research that they have done here in the Philippines about the impact of the rescue operation for children. There is such, it's so heartbreaking because the child needs to understand that it's their parents who are abusing them or selling them online, but they also think this is the one who's supposed to take care of me.
Right,
They are the one who needs to protect me. And
right.
so it's so difficult for the child, aside from the trauma of, having had this sexual abuse, and then the trauma of being separated,
Mhm.
from your primary caregiver, who's also the one who's abusing you. That's more traumatic for a child. So it's so difficult to journey with the survivors, of course. That's why prevention is so needed, so that we will not end up with children who will be in, this third part is a protection, the shelters. So we have a lot of partner shelters here in the Philippines. Actually, we have what we call the Freedom Sunday Network, and this is composed of different ministries, shelters, advocacy groups, and ministries like us, who are like-minded, who wants to talk about this issue, and but at the same time to create awareness, and then also make people aware that yes, there are shelters
Right.
that can cater to children like this. So that's the protection part of this. And then partnership. So what we're doing now, this is a partnership, that we can do and talk more about this. And then partnership with churches, partnership with other faith-based organization or different non-government organization, so that we can work together. The work that OSEC requires of us is that we need to be collaborative, because the perpetrators, the pimps, everybody is collaborating on their side. So
Ah,
we also need to be
right,
collaborative, right? In doing the work to
right.
prevent this. Yeah. Hmm.
It's like crime rings. It's like organized crime. So we need
Hmm.
organized good or something.
Yeah. Hmm.
That is a crazy.
Yeah. So that's partnership. And then this is the first one I should have shared, prayer.
Yay!
And so the 5 P's that we can do
Yes.
It's prevention, prosecution, protection, partnership, and then prayer. Or the first one should be prayer.
Right,
So we
right.
have to gather our church families, our faith communities, and
Mm,
then pray about this issue. And
mhm.
then, of course, after praying, we need to do something.
Yes. So that's a really great, I think, a very holistic understanding. And also knowing that our governments, so for us in Canada,
Mhm.
we can connect with our governments and ask what they're doing
Yes.
and
You
write our members of parliament.
Actually, in November, November 18 to 20, there was a global resolve against OSEC
Okay.
conference. It was headed by the International Justice Mission, the Philippines Department of Justice, Interagency Council Against Trafficking, and the United States. So these three groups collaborated so that they can gather all the stakeholders to talk about this issue. So we are part of that, and we talk about the aftercare journey.
Okay.
What survivors needs to have, or what kind of support system they need to have, so that we
Yeah.
can help them, to rise above it, and then not just remain as survivors, but also leaders in this fight.
Right.
Mhm.
Wow. So then that's what you are, that's your,
Yes.
can you help us understand what that means and how? Like that sounds hard.
So that's the area that we focus on, and of course it's a lot of work, a lot of journeying with them. But the vision of She Works, that's the program that we have here in the Philippines. Work stands for Women of Reliability, Knowledge, and Skills. So we envision every traffic woman survivor living with their God-given dignity,
Mm,
meeting
yeah.
their practical needs if sufficiently, and equipping them to serve and lead others in the community by giving them platforms to advocate against modern day slavery of women and children in partnership with the body of Christ. So we envision the women survivors to become leaders, in their own respective context. So that's what we are doing as a ministry. So we have four core programs. The way that we do it, one is what we call the She Works. That one, so we are focused on the livelihood skills training for traffic women survivors. So we have about 62 women survivors in the community. So our ministry is community based. So that means that um, the women are living in the community. So what we do is to organize them and to gather them so that we will teach them livelihood and skills training. And then we have a program called She Leads. So this is the leadership formation of traffic women survivors. So for now, we have about 5 women leaders who are formerly survivors, but now they are leading the ministry with us. And at the same time, we have a partnership with the International Justice Mission. About 30 of their survivors is also under the She Leads program. And it's a partnership that we call All Star
Huh.
because they are stars.
Yeah.
And then STAR stands for Standing Together Advocating Rights. So
Wow.
that's yes. So these are the combination of the survivors of IJM and our very own survivors. So we do a lot of retreats for them. We have camps. So that's a yearly thing. We have camps, but now I'm not sure if we'll be able to do that because of the pandemic. But usually we have every year we call it the All-Star Survivors Camp, that they gather together, and then we also have a survivor prayer gathering,
Great.
so that the survivors themselves can pray together. And
Mhm.
then we also have the She Acts program. So this program is strengthening the advocacy against modern day slavery, so particularly OSEC and child sexual abuse. So
Mm,
we talk about online sexual exploitation of children in the schools, in the communities, and partnering with grassroots ministries, because that's where uh, much of the exploitation is happening, because there's so much poverty there. So we want to educate the children. So to date, I think we have educated more than 5,000 children in the Philippines by using puppet shows. We have puppets. And the great thing about this is that it's the survivors themselves who are doing the puppet shows, right? So it's a survivor led
Oh,
advocacy. And then sometimes some of them, if they are bold enough, they can share part of their story so that the people will be inspired.
that's cool.
Yeah, and
It's
then
like,
the last part of our program, that this is the last part. It's called the She Cares. It's children at risk empowerment and support. This is taking care of the children of the survivors. So we
okay.
have 75 children who's under this program that we're providing education, we're providing their health, their health needs. And yesterday, one of our team was telling me they went to the home of one of the kids. And then he said, now I feel so strong and healthy because of the vitamins that you have provided for, for me. So I'm so happy to hear that because we have a lot of people who's supporting the ministry, providing vitamins, providing care packs for these kids during this lockdown.
Mhm.
So those are the four ways that it's a holistic program that we're trying to connect with the survivors so that we can come alongside them.
Well, wow, that's amazing. Because it's just, yeah, like you said, it's really holistic. Not you're
Mhm.
not only caring for their physical, like through even
Yes.
vitamins, but also giving them
Mhm.
protection, but also you're giving them like education and
Yes.
empowering them to speak up and to teach others so
Hmm.
that they can also prevent others from like from just being like abused, I guess, as well.
Yes, and also, they are the most powerful people to do this.
Yeah,
Because, for me, I can talk about this all day long.
right.
But if there's somebody who is a survivor who's gone through this and say that it's possible for
Mm,
us to have this kind of deep transformation,
yeah.
it's life changing, even for us.
Wow.
So it's a privilege, honestly, to be calling them as our co-laborers. So now we have
Yeah.
five of them who's leading all of the different parts of this ministry. So we have one of them who's in charge of the She Leads program. One of
Mm,
them is part of the She Cares, who's in charge of the She Cares program. So we're really proud of them. I hope one day you can meet them.
I would love
And
to meet
sometimes,
them,
yeah.
but it makes it more real. Like a real person
Yes.
is now
Mhm.
talking to you and it's real. And also that it's possible to leave that and actually
Mhm.
thrive. Wow.
And also, use your story.
Yeah,
How do you use all the traumatic experiences that
right.
you have gone through,
Right.
with the hope of Christ in you,
Mm,
so that you can also invite others. So, actually, on Feb 14, we have online groups. And so each one of the survivor leaders are actually leading online groups among
wow.
other survivors, and we have a Valentine fellowship for each of this group for the 62 women. So each one of them has
Oh,
like 12 to 13 women under them.
wow, that's great. But it's also really like so good that you're taking something that is evil, honestly, and bad, and making it into something that they can actually now like make into a positive, good thing.
Yeah, and I have learned so much from my survivor friends. They have taught me so much about resilience. But
Mhm,
at the same time, how do we use the wounds and the broken parts of our past so that we can move forward,
mhm,
and so that we can use that so that we can still say that God can use broken people like us.
mhm, yeah. So, yeah, what have you learned from?
So many things. So many things, but well, what I've learned first and foremost is that we are just co-laboring with them.
Mhm,
It's not really our work, because sometimes we think that we come to this kind of ministry as a hero, right? yes, we are heroes in our own, on our own way. But I think, we are, coming alongside them. So
Right.
it's working side by side with them and learning from them. Our program actually is shaped by the survivors
Mm.
themselves. We
Mhm.
will not do anything that is not, that is not coming from them.
Right.
So we ask them, what do they need?
Right.
What are the things that that excites them?
Mhm.
And so that's
Mm.
how we make, our program. So that's what I've learned, that we need to be listening to each
Mhm.
other. Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to be giving people, or not giving their voice, because they already have a voice, but
Mm.
that voice is, silenced by abuse, by exploitation. But it's about time for us to listen to their voices and to
Mm.
reclaim those voices and amplify that. So this is
Yeah.
one way of amplifying,
Yes,
of
exactly.
amplifying their voices. Yes. So that's what I've learned from that. And then also,
Mm.
um, it's hard work and it's difficult. So for us who's on the giving end, we need to know how to be good stewards of the
Mhm.
trauma. We have a group called the Trauma Stewardship group.
Wow.
So how do we steward that?
Yeah.
And how do we take care of ourselves
Wow.
when we are taking of other people? Because there's such a thing as vicarious trauma, getting all of that from getting all, from the stories, from the experiences, and living with that day in and day out. Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to have a spiritual practice, or something that can help you to sustain yourself if you are in here for the long haul. But the kind of work that we're doing is actually for the long haul, because you want to establish trust,
Yes.
for people whose trust have been betrayed over and over and over again. So you have to be there all the time. I mean, the way that you do ministry is not just you're gonna visit and then you leave. You have to be with them, journeying with them, knowing their stories, knowing their tears and their pain, and also embracing that, as part of your story as well, because you're in community with them,
Right.
and living in community with them. I think that's so precious to me. Honestly, I think my life was so rich because of that. I am a richer person because of them.
Mhm.
The way that they understand God
Mhm.
was not the way that I understood God, but because of my interaction with them, I have come to know God in a deeper way. Yeah, so it's living in community with them. It's important.
Mhm. Wow, I love what you're saying about even acknowledging the trauma that
Mm-hmm.
you choose to undertake.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're
Mm-hmm.
like you love them not on a superficial level, but in a way that's really like just like over the long haul.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that takes a that just it's a sacrifice. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and also I think it's a calling from the Lord. So it's a privilege, honestly, to do this kind of work. But I'm not saying that it's it's easy.
Right.
It's hard, but it's a privilege to be able to live in community with them, to walk alongside them, to come alongside them. Mhm.
Yeah. Thank
Mhm.
you so much for doing that. And obviously, it's a personal thing. They're not numbers to you, whereas
No, they are real people with real stories, and also funny people too. They are some of the funniest people. We were talking to each other, our team. We say, someday we can write a book about, how funny
you should. Are you gonna
they
write a book?
are.
Oh,
Yeah, they
good.
are really funny, and they are.
Good.
Honestly, with the trauma that they have gone through, sometimes it's so difficult to see that, wow, they are joyful people too, right? But honestly, they are the most joyful people that I know.
Wow.
They delight in the simplest things in life. They are so grateful about the little things in life. And
Well,
so I just love all of them.
that gives you perspective, right? Because you're like,
Yes.
oh, or I don't know, you're like, why don't I have this and this and this? You're like, well, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? It's not that important. I am
Mm-hmm.
safe. I have a warm bed to sleep in, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's it helps keep things in perspective, maybe.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you'd like us to know? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, other than that they are funny.
Yes. And also, I think we have to look beyond the, you know, the survivor, the trauma,
Mhm,
and to look at a person and see the dreams that they have, the desires that they have. And
mhm,
so I think that's a call for us to really see the dignity of a person
mhm.
apart from everything that happened to them. And sometimes people would say, "Oh, that's not the ministry that's for me," because that's, even for us who's ministering to them, we have to do a lot of inner work first because we also have our own trauma and our own things. And so when that encounters other people's, it's gonna blow up. So you have to be also somebody who's trying to do a lot of deeper
Mm,
and inner work so that it's not gonna be interfere in the way that you serve them. But at the same
right.
time, you have to be vulnerable to them, right? And then open up to who you are so that they know who you are. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's something that I want to communicate, that we need to look at them, the survivors, past everything.
Yeah.
In, Look at them the way that God sees them. And I know it's hard because we already have this notion and idea that, oh, it might be hard to connect with them. No, we connect with them on a human level.
Mhm. I think it would be really helpful too to just remember how God sees them.
Mm-hmm,
Because
mm-hmm. And
God's
the way that God sees us, the
yeah.
way that God is compassionate to us, the way that God loves us, that's the kind of love that that God wants us to be able to share to others. Not just the survivors, but to everyone.
Right.
Mm.
Which then gives, again, good perspective on who we are, because we're human
Mhm,
beings and
mhm.
created in his image and
Yes.
beloved by God. So
Mhm. Yeah.
thanks so much, Rochelle. I
Well,
really,
thank you so much. But if you want to connect with us, you can
yes.
go to our website, madeinhope.org, and then our Facebook page, She Works dash Made in Hope, and connect with us. There are different ways on how you can volunteer, how you want to help,
Right.
and yeah, and then yeah, be part of this fight against online sexual exploitation and against human trafficking, because there are different forms of trafficking. So this is just one of them.
Right.
It's just one of them. So there are different kinds of trafficking that's happening all over the world. So yes, and thank you so much for giving me a space here in
My
your
pleasure.
anecdotes. It's
Oh, yeah.
this is an important issue that you're able to bring in, and also make your friends and your viewers be aware of.
Yes. And because it's a global issue, I think that we all need to figure out our part. Um,
Mhm.
and working with our local governments. Maybe there's a local NGO who is working on a
Mhm.
global level,
Mhm.
like International Justice Mission. I think it's in
Mhm.
quite a few different countries:
Mhm.
UK, Australia, US, Canada, and
Mhm.
other countries for sure, including the
Yes.
Philippines. So,
Mm.
so that's really important. And obviously, to support you guys, even financially, would be helpful.
Yes, it's helpful, especially now. We have started the economic empowerment of training for some of the other survivors. So we're excited for that newest training that we will be doing to
Great.
some of the survivors in the community. So teaching them new skills like sewing,
Yes.
yeah, and so painting and all of that. And then
Great.
we have products actually that the women makes.
Oh, great.
So yeah, so if they can go to the website and then they go to the Facebook page, they can see some of the programs and then the products that the women makes.
That's awesome. Um, so what's in the future for you? What's in the near future?
What's in the future? Well, this.
Hey,
Well, I'm excited for now because, as I mentioned, we have 5 women survivors who's leading with us. So I think that's so joyful for me to
great.
see the women survivors leading. So
That's
that what excites me the most.
yeah.
And other things in the future, and honestly now we are in the process of continually building the women, and then also the economic empowerment
Mhm,
of the survivors, and then
mhm.
also the children's part of the work that we are doing. We have 75 children,
That's a
and
lot.
so so I have 75 children as a single woman.
You are Ate Michelle for
To
sure.
everybody. Yes.
Wow. That's great.
So I'm that's what I'm excited about. I usually travel before speaking, but because of what's happening in the world right now, the travel has been limited. And
Right.
so mostly the work that I do online
Yeah.
are online, yes.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time, and I really hope to see you in person again sometime soon.
Yes,
So
and if
exciting.
ever you're coming back to Asia, you know that you have a friend in the Philippines, and you're welcome to visit us,
Thank you.
visit our community.
Yes. Thank you so much. Well, have
Thank
an
you,
awesome
Anne.
day.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Okay.